All right, well, very good, very good. We're glad to have everybody here with us. Welcome. Glad you could join us to this interesting webinar, an interesting subject, certainly hands-on guidance to how to execute omni-channel automation in 24. Certainly interesting for all sorts of reasons for those coming from different directions, all sorts of places. So I'm Michael Kane here with Shower Thinking. We've got our two panelists with us as well, Alfonso López and Phillip Vyt. And we'll just start quickly with an intro to Shower Thinking, who we are, what we do on our end, our experience and qualifications. So we're a hybrid marketing and technology consultancy. We pride ourselves in just that, being able to bridge that gap between marketing and technology. And we're also a Salesforce partner, as you can see. So we offer multi-cloud services for multinational companies, and we have over 100 Salesforce certifications. We've been recognized by Salesforce, in fact, as a top 10 solution provider in Salesforce in Europe, as a preferred partner specifically in pharma in multiple countries. And we've even been asked to present a pharma case at this past year's Dreamforce in San Francisco. So that was exciting. And we launch over 1,000 journeys on a yearly basis, and what can reach up to about over 50 countries. So that's our experience, and here you can see some of our direct pharma customers, as well as some of our non-pharma customers down below, as well as where we can assist, or where we do assist, say with outsourced marketing cloud services. So what's on the agenda here for this webinar? You might be wondering exactly what are we going to be looking at. Well, as you can see, the first point is why exactly do we see a struggle when trying to start with omni-channel, and then we'll look at okay, we get it, it's certainly hard, but how can I exactly make progress? Followed up by the campaign canvas, how that can serve as a baseline for your first campaign. And then once we have a plan, how we can create the campaign, following with what are some common mistakes that are made at that level, and then looking forward, where do we go from here? So just to get to know, have a brief intro to our panelists here. We have Alfonso López from Shower Thinking. Alfonso is currently working as head of health and pharma with Shower Thinking, and he also has over 20 years of experience working from within pharma companies prior to this, leading the way to omnichannel excellence. So we have Alfonso there. And then we also have Phillip Vyt. Phillip is the founder of Shift. He's an expert in omnichannel and works with marketing, medical, and omnichannel teams to improve omnichannel execution in pharma. And he's worked with companies like AbbVie, MSD, Takeda, and Galapagos. So to get us going, we'll turn things over to Phillip now, starting with our first point on our webinar today.
Hey, Michael, thanks for the introduction. Really great to be here, guys. And I'm gonna get going right away, because I think that a lot of you might be going to a Christmas drink in a company. So I'm gonna take off. So I started Shift with the key goal to tackle omnichannel execution. And the goal for me today is to get going and to talk about how can you actually start dealing with this omnichannel execution. And I skip one slide. So before we go any further, I don't want to elaborate too much about this topic, but I think it's interesting just to touch base and to kind of level set. Why do we struggle with omnichannel execution? Because we've all been in these meetings where we discuss over and over the difference between multi-channel and omnichannel, and at the end, we still struggle to just get things out of the gate. So I think the first reason which I see with customers is that we have the tendency to make things too complex, and that complexity is basically freezing up the organization. So there's so many variables: segmentation, content preferences, channel preferences, or where the HCP is in the adoption funnel. And if you take all of these variables into play, things get too complicated to start going. So what I do with customers is I simplify to the maximum to have that first campaign. It's like riding a bike. I put training wheels on the bike. It's not the perfect situation, but we are riding a bike, and that's the goal. So that's what I'll introduce, the minimal viable campaign, MVC, and I'll talk about this later on. The second element is, I think a lot of people in customer excellence or omni-channel, people who have that label, sometimes feel lonely. They feel misunderstood. They really have a big drive to make a difference in the organization, to improve how we talk to HCPs, but they don't always get that traction from marketing. They don't always get that traction from medical. It's a different culture at the medical side. And that is not an easy job to do, because you want to go forward, you want to bring in new things, you want to bring in innovation, but you need those content owners, those strategy owners to get those things, to get those first campaigns going. This is where I advise to focus on narrative and trust, and I'll talk about this later on when I speak about your campaign roadmap for the first 5 to 6 months. And then the third challenge we have is over designing of the engagement program. A lot of companies launch a massive omni-channel program. They build a big communication, they do a huge kickoff, they have some champions, and they train people. And this means that there's a lot of conversation, there's a lot of organizing. We talk about governance first, and 6 months later, there's mostly a VP that says, yeah, okay, guys, we have all of this noise, but what did we actually do? Did we move the needle? And then even the conversation goes towards, okay, we have no execution, but we have been working on this for 6 months. This is where I advise people to start doing first in a very kind of stealth mode, very much under the radar, without already announcing champions, and even without giving a first training. It's doing first, which is with a guided coalition, which is with support, and then you start to train. So those are three things that I just wanted to address, like what are the main reasons, and I found these things with customers over the years of 22 and 23. I'm gonna skip to the next one. And if you see these three, right, and when I was talking to Alfonso, we kind of had a list of 10 things that were challenging, both from a technical side or from a business side. We didn't want to present this list of 10 because we all know those. And I'm very sorry, but there is also not a magic trick to solve all of this. But I wanted to go and touch two things today. So how can you start really from zero to having your first automated campaign in 2024? And then the piece in yellow is very important. Without you as an omni-channel expert, without losing the organization, without going too fast. Two things that you need to put in your toolbox. The first one is, what is my roadmap to a minimal viable campaign in preparation and onboarding the organization? And the second, how can just one page, a campaign canvas, something really easy and something basic, how can it put the right people around one table and have a conversation on one sheet of paper? That's basically the goal of campaign canvas. I'll jump right into the journey of your roadmap. So if you start in January and want to go for your first automated campaign, where do you then start? Where do you go, and where do you put your energy in? And I've kind of outlined this, and if you see this from left to right, from my experience, it takes a few weeks and months to get your first campaign in the books. The fastest that I've done it with a company going from zero to a first campaign was from the first global kickoff to a first campaign, 3.5 months. That's pretty fast. This is a bit longer and a bit slower. So we start on the left, building your story. This doesn't need to be a 10 or 12 page slide deck. It just needs to be 1 or 2 slides where you say, we want to start with a pilot on campaign automation. We want to learn what this could bring for our organization. And I need a few people to get this going. Do not focus on the people that show resistance. You know the people in your organization that are probably already kind of warmed up and willing to join. Those are the people you need to target. The first campaign is all about finding the path of least resistance, and your achievement is doing something. So that's number one. The second one is you got to target the right partners. And you do need people from marketing and or medical, people that own content, to join. You cannot do this only from omnichannel, and you will see later on, because a campaign without content and without a strategy and without a tactical execution will not move. So number 2 is critical, and start with marketing or medical. In most cases, the commercial people are a bit more easy to step in a project like this. And this can be both on HQ or on a market, right? So I normally work with 1 or 2 markets as a pilot, not with all of Europe, not with all of EMEA. I start with 2 markets, and I do not always even start with all of the reps. Sometimes I start with 10% of the reps, just the people that want to join in this movement. The third one is you need to find your first campaign topic. And there is something like, what is a good campaign topic? Ideally, you find a topic which is interesting for multiple segments of HCPs, which is kind of easy, which starts from a conference abstract, which start from some conference outputs, which starts from a generic element, a generic piece of content. The goal here is that you need to keep it small. You need to keep it small because if you make it too complex, it will hinder you from execution. Number 4 is you need to talk upfront with 2 of the most challenging partners. Field managers, so this means the sales managers or the people that manage the MSLs, and you need to talk to compliance people. Because if you onboard them too late, they will be frustrated because of the timing, and they could show stop this. They're really gatekeepers, field managers towards the field force, and compliance towards getting this really executed. And this means that you need to start from the beginning here. You need to even explain what is an automated email and what's the difference with a Veeva approved email. And can we use the rep's name, or can we use the rep's name when we automate emails? Those are the basics when people have not come into contact with automation that you need to explain them. Take your time. It will be more than 1 meeting. So that's the prep, 1 to 4. And now you have got everybody on board. You got a very small team of 2-3 people to execute this, and you start your campaign design process. And you've already seen maybe this small icon already in phase 3. This is where the campaign canvas will help you in 3, 4, but especially 5 to start doing the design process. In the campaign kickoff, you will fill in this canvas, and as of this point, the programming, the localization, the translation, the MLR process of content on average takes until 10 to 12 weeks to go live, especially for a first campaign. You also see the logo of Shower Thinking. We've worked in the past, so we kind of known each other as partners. This is where a company as Shower Thinking, and maybe already in previous steps, joins in to partner and to make this happen. So then we have number 6, where you go into the campaign creation process. It's 1 step, but it takes multiple weeks. This is where the production process begins. Translation, content, you work with a local agency, and a lot of parallel work streams, a lot of parallel work packages come together there. At the end, you do a testing, and your campaign is ready to go live. Step number 7 has been a critical element in becoming successful with running campaigns. And this is the training and the education both of the sales managers and of the field. There's one practical element in the training and education. It should always be in local language, especially to the field force. And you normally integrate into a planning that already exists. This is aligned with sales cycles, and this happens when you already have training moments with the field. And this can be an important element of getting your first campaign live, because number 7 is needed to actually go live. In number 8, you will go live. It will be your first day. It's when you start the campaign. That will run on average, I would say, between 3 and 6, 7 months. And then on number 9, you evaluate, of course, continuously, but you do need to invest in a proper assessment and a review, because doing campaigns and investing in engagement more than anything is not only about performance, it's also about the adoption. Do I get my field force to embrace this? And what are the upfront assumptions that I put in my campaign canvas? And can I validate those? Or did I learn something different? Are people engaging with this message? And are they maybe engaging more or less than I've expected upfront? So this is kind of a full outline. Let's say if you would start today, you would be ready by May or June, maybe slightly before, to have your first campaign live. So that learning about campaign planning is a very interesting competence and skill that you need to master within your organization. I'm just flipping to the next slide. We're going to 12. There we go. Now, when we talk about a minimal viable campaign, I already said you need to keep that complexity out of that first campaign. So I put together 5 guidelines that I always work with. And the first one is, from an omnichannel expertise level, you are skilled. You know a lot more than anybody else in the organization about this topic. So for you as an expert, it should feel too easy. It should feel too basic, that first campaign. And that is actually where you need to put the level of maturity of that first campaign. You should think about, okay, if we're today from an engagement level at number 3 out of 10, how can we build a campaign that will get us to number 4 or 5? It's the smallest step forward. That will bring your success. That will give you the trust you need in the organization. The second topic is when you build your campaign, it's not a campaign for doing the purpose of a campaign. Your campaign is always an execution of a tactical plan and is an execution of a local strategy. When I talk to local teams or salespeople, they sometimes forget this and they feel that a campaign is something extra. It's something that they normally are not doing and that you ask them extra to do. This is not extra. This is basically reinforcing what is already there in their tactical plan. So number 2 is important. Keep that in mind. Always reconnected strategy piece. The first minimal viable campaigns that I do are never full digital. They always involve the field force because you need to gain trust. And you need to gain trust with the reps, with the MSLs to showcase that automated emails have a lot of advantage for them. They can increase the reach, they can increase share of voice, they can increase the number of touch points that you would normally not have. So you need to build that rationale, that involvement, and you need to discuss with them that when you're a rep in this process, you can have control, you can have transparency, you can showcase if emails get open, yes or no, on their Veeva timeline, for example. So number 3 is key. Instead of walking around the fields, instead of kind of bypassing sales managers, you need to have them up front. And then number 4, a good example of a minimal viable campaign is a rep, Salesforce Marketing Cloud email journey, and a landing page. So you focus on 3 channels only. You do not over complexify. And I didn't outline a visual below. Alfonso will later on discuss also an example, which is I think already a bit further. And I think it's really good to see that he took this a little step forward. This one is a basic about a rep visits a physician. After his visits, if the physician is interested, he follows up with 2 automated emails. Those emails get triggered because the rep logs the call into Veeva. Email 1 and email 2, they're sent from a different platform. It's Salesforce Marketing Cloud. In email 1, there is a call to action, and that call to action brings you to a landing page 1, and email 2 brings you to a landing page 2. So it's rep, email 1, and email 2. This is a campaign that will run over 2 to 4 weeks. You can program everything that it doesn't get sent out in the weekends, etc. There's many possibilities with Salesforce Marketing Cloud. The reason how I basically sell this kind of journey is to say to the reps, the next time you go in for your second visit, you'll be smarter because everything you will know about the engagement that the physician showed in email 1, email 2, and the activities he did on the landing page. So I help to make reps more knowledgeable, more impactful on their next visit. Number 5, I forgot to mention, basic rule, 1 email, 1 call to action, 1 landing page, and no dead ends. Normally I'll connect from the landing page to a portal. So this also helps to grow your ecosystem and reconnect to the portal. So this is already a first outline how an MVC could look like. Alfonso will discuss later on and further how he sees this from a Salesforce Marketing Cloud perspective. So that was the first part. I'm now going to take you to the campaign canvas, which kind of helps you throughout that journey of 4 or 5 months in establishing that first campaign. And the campaign canvas is a 1-pager that has a strategic element to it, a tactical element, and it helps you to have all of the right stakeholders around the table to fill in and to design that first campaign. So the pure process of this is to work as a checklist, and also from a change perspective is to have everybody around the table discussing 1 reference document. So the campaign canvas will help you also with the cross-functional team. And when you see the different boxes on the campaign canvas, you will quickly also understand who needs to be part of this conversation. There's a top part in it, which discusses more strategic elements, and there's a bottom part, which focuses more on execution, the journey design. I've been using this for the past 2 to 3 years, both in pharma and outside pharma, and more than 80 campaigns have been designed on this one. So it's been already version 6 or 7, I think, so it's have grown, and it has been redesigned a few times. I'm just going to jump into this. You will have this available also as a download. We'll pop in the link, I think, in the chat later on. You can just go to the website and then download this, and then you can start working with this. I'll just walk you guys through from top to bottom. I need to kind of fast pace this because it's not a goal to go into details, but I've added quite a lot of text, which would help you guys to work through this. I'm going to start with insights, understanding, and context. So this is when you start designing a campaign, you need to understand what is the landscape, what is the HCP need that I'm solving, what are the insights that I've gathered over the past months doing different campaigns, and what do I actually know? So this is your first step in towards HCP centricity and not just doing a campaign because you want to push that topic. It always helps you to bring in insights people to see what do they know, what is my reference point. In a lot of cases, this work already happened or should have already happened as part of a strategic and tactical local plan. But it's good to kind of reiterate and to bring the insights people at the table. And then you go in towards campaign goal, target audience, and KPI and metrics. And in most cases, these three strategic topics are defined with the content owners, marketing or medical, together with omnichannel people or customer excellence. So the campaign goal, that's a tricky one because you need to go a lot deeper than just say, we're doing this for awareness reasons. We want to grow reach. No, you need to define this in a way that you build in a top line campaign goal. You need to build in assumptions about what do I want to achieve? What is my assumption about the adoption level that reps will have? What's the level of reach that I will have with this campaign? What's the level of engagement that I'm expecting? And if everything goes well, you should be able to bring it down to one metric or one topic that will define the success of your campaign. A good campaign goal is also something which you'll be able to check off. Did we achieve this, yes or no? And what of our sub-campaign goals were we able to achieve? From my experience, campaign goal is not an easy conversation. Together with target audience, I see that this is where normally in the past, in a lot of companies, there was less attention on. Most of the companies that I work with have a generic goal and have a target audience that is basically targeting everybody. So target audience, of course, is this to a specific segment, is to a specific number of HCPs as part of your adoption ladder. Are they prescribing, non-prescribing? Are they top, middle, or low in the funnel? So to who are you reaching bringing this campaign? And then number three, KPIs and metrics. That's how you want to evaluate your campaign goal. Different metrics that will showcase the performance. And if you have some benchmarks, you could add that also in that box. OMTM, the one metric that matters would be, for example, we have a full journey, but there is really one KOL video that we really see as part of the success of this campaign. And that's the one metric that matters, which is the number of views of a KOL video. And then you can say the number of views above 50% of that video. So you need to be very specific in that box. And then we come to the bottom part, which is more execution focused. And this is where I see a lot more companies getting more comfortable in filling these in. So key messages and assets and formats, this is normally where your marketeers or your medical people, your content owners would play. Channels and customer journey, that's the kind of realm of the people in omnichannel or engagement roles. So key messages is, of course, not around the content, but is pure around message strategy. We want to talk about certain messages in efficacy, in safety of a product that goes into this box. It's very closely linked with your strategic and tactical plan of the year 2024. When I work with content, assets, and formats, I kind of make a distinction between core pieces, between assets which are needed to execute a journey. Reminder emails, for example, is something very different than a key download. So you kind of need to structure that a little bit more in assets and formats. It could also be that when you design your customer journey, you need to go back to assets and formats and add a few elements there because you've created an extra landing page or a reminder email. Channels is something obvious. In the minimal viable campaign, I can already say it, I do not take into account channel preference. I assume that everybody opens emails. I assume that web is a channel which is established. It's the combination of content and channel that will bring you the level of engagement. So I take out channel preference out of the equation. Customer journey is like I showed you before. It's really the actual physical journey, the sketch that you make that people will go through, and that really is built around that HCP experience. And then the last part is cross-functional team. It's something you could even start with to really think about, okay, if we are designing this campaign and the goal is to work on a medical campaign or a commercial campaign, who should we have around the table and who takes the ownership to make this a success? I could talk for half an hour about this one. I can show some examples, but I just want to skip through this. I think a lot of you can start exploring with this. You can always reconnect with me to know a little bit more about the campaign canvas. Before I hand it over to Alfonso, I really want to reiterate, when you work on a minimal viable campaign, when you work on your first campaign, there's 3 things you need to keep top of mind. You're here to create motion, to start doing something. You're here to initiate a learning journey. Rather than being performant in a campaign, it's more important to map your learning pieces. And the third point is even more important. You need to grow trust in that first campaign to make sure that you have a pathway, a roadmap to continue with campaigns. So you need to establish that that expertise, that first trust with the field force. You can use those peers and that hopefully good experience to grow and to elaborate that trust further in the organization. Alfonso, I want to bridge to you to kind of go further on how do we execute campaigns and bring in that shower thinking expertise.
Okay, thanks, Philip, for this excellent introduction. I believe this exercise is crucial from the beginning, and I really appreciate this campaign canvas. It's fantastic. Now the question, how do we start? What is needed to begin with Salesforce Marketing Cloud and start piloting this minimal viable campaign? In our approach to implementing campaigns in Salesforce Marketing Cloud for the pharma sector, we prioritize 3 key pillars: technology, execution, and adoption. Our focus on technology ensures that we can perfectly define what we have in order to establish the scope of a minimal viable campaign. And the emphasis on execution highlights our commitment to a perfect implementation and successful operations at scale. And lastly, our dedication to adoption underscores the importance of user engagement and the successful integration of the platform. By aligning these 3 principles, we do our best to deliver clear and impactful solutions in a very agile way. Moving on to something more tangible. We are not talking about a one-shot implementation. We are talking about supporting you in a fantastic journey you want to start. From our experience, our proposal is about 2-3 years of roadmap, starting with a discovery phase and pilot definition. Today, we are only focusing on the pilot phase. Here, in some cases, we need to set up or to improve the Salesforce Marketing Cloud implementation. Through some discovery sessions, we gain insights into the architecture, understanding fundamental aspects such as integration with the CRM that helps to determine whether we can use certain activations or propose different campaign types with a different mix of channels. But this is not a stopper. So we adapt the use cases to this minimal viable campaign pilot. And as you can see, after a pilot, the focus is the adoptions from other brands and countries, depending the case. And then finally, it becomes business as usual. Salesforce Marketing Cloud will orchestrate your omnichannel strategy at the core. And for me, a great service is an end-to-end approach, where the focus is the strategy and the needs to meet. Then our main objective is to guide and support you in the execution of the minimal viable campaign. Having the campaign canvas presented by Philip is an opportunity to move fast with the briefing sessions. But how does the end-to-end approach work? Well, it's easy. We organize as micro projects for each campaign, led by a campaign manager who takes responsibility for the entire process, from the discovery and advisory to the briefing and implementation. And behind the scenes, consultants deal with the technical implementation. Finally, we return with feedback and analysis of the campaign performance, thinking about the next campaigns. Well, even though we are discussing creating a minimal viable campaign, the Salesforce Marketing Cloud implementation level may offer some additional possibilities. However, as Philip commented, it's essential to balance and consider that it may need more approvals if we use more content, or could be we need training, sales reps, and potentially causing some project delays. In this case, you can see in the screen, this is a kind of always-on campaign triggered when a face-to-face visit happens. This is a best practice to increase frequency and engagement depending on segmentation and the strategy of the product. Then Salesforce Marketing Cloud takes control, checks if the email is open, and if not, we do remarketing for the non-openers, for example, or the non-clickers. In this case, we have added a survey using Cloud Page in Salesforce Marketing Cloud. Actually, we are currently setting up use cases to use AI to analyze answers and to obtain sentiment analysis, and also checking for adverse reactions to communicate directly to pharmacovigilance teams. We have a lot of possibilities with Salesforce Marketing Cloud. And last but not least, our MBA, next best action, in real time sends a task or suggestion to the rep based on the data collected. Amazing, right? And this use case is inspirational for scaling a minimal viable campaign. In our final slide, I'd like to share an inspiring case. We're talking about a company starting from scratch, making a bold commitment to omnichannel strategies and achieving exceptional adoption with an impressive execution of several campaigns. This case is not only a standout example of implementation, but also a solid example of a successful rollout and a strong governance of Salesforce Marketing Cloud. As you can see, in 2020, piloting campaigns in countries by waves, then rolling out to other brands, and finally, we can see a complete adoption with about 200 campaigns. Amazing to see how currently the omnichannel strategy is at the core of the company and continue growing. And well, Philip, looking forward, where do we go from here?
I'm still impressed by the numbers you just showed in the previous slide. I think
it's
yeah, because when Alfonso showed me this slide, I was like, my God, those numbers are really, really great. And I think it talks to the success of the operational partnership that Shower Thinking has. But even if you would go slower, right? I think, like Alfonso says, this is really a great case, and both the pharma company and Shower Thinking can be proud of that one. But okay, we now did this first webinar, right? And when Alfonso and when we met a bit earlier in Madrid, we said, okay, we want to do a first webinar and say, how do you actually start? Because there's a lot of conversation on AI, and every next big shiny thing always gets a lot of attention. So this is the first one. But I think it's also great to elaborate maybe in January and February, like when you do your first campaign, how can you grow into this setting up a portfolio? Like when you said to the customer, right? Going from one campaign to a multitude of campaigns, and are they maybe different use cases beyond the rep? Especially when we see that reach is really a big struggle, having access to hcps, you cannot solely rely on rep use cases. So I think that's I think an interesting for next one. But maybe it's good to kind of give the people listening in also the chance to give some ideas and to inspire us for sure. So feel free, if you want to have a topic discussed by Alfonso and myself, feel free to add it in the chat so that we can pick this up in Jan and Feb. And then maybe also a good one is we haven't discussed it yet, but we said earlier on from the many participants that we have, because it's quite a number of people that we have joining, we wanted to give away a 1-hour coaching session with Alfonso and myself in the month of January to really have a conversation about how can you take the next step in your maturity, how can you grow on your journey towards campaign and campaign and marketing automation. So we'll be announcing that, I think, Alfonso, tomorrow, right? With we'll have somebody do a random pick, and then we'll do that announcement, I think, before the weekend.
That's the idea, Philip.
I think that makes a great Christmas gift.
Yeah, it's true.
Michael, did we get any questions? I saw a few things moving in the chat.
I've got a few things, a couple of questions here for you guys. So some interesting ones that I think some of them come up often, some other interesting ones as well. The first one is, do you see many opt-outs in the journeys you design, and are the performance rates different from, say, Veeva approved email?
Okay, so I assume they mean consent opt-outs from an automated journey. Alfonso, do you want to go first, or do I share my experience first?
Can you share, Philip?
So I think when I look at the number of opt-outs, it's been fairly minimal in the past campaigns. Of course, I mean, the quality of an automated email will not be perceived different as the quality of a Veeva approved email, right? So if you send out every 2-3 days Veeva approved emails, if you start spamming people, so higher the frequency and the volume, you will have that. You will also have a reaction and that you don't want to have with HCPs. So everything starts with finding the right frequency, the right pace, and that's not different with Veeva approved email than SFMC. Also, what a lot of people still fear is that SFMC is not this. An SFMC automated personal email is not the same as a mass email. So I think also you need to see that when an HCP gets that automated email, it will still come from the rep. If I send an email to Dr. Alfonso, it will still be from Phillip Vyt. Will mimic the email address. When Dr. Alfonso replies, it can still end up in my inbox. So from a relationship perspective, from personalization, we can really build it in. So I think that's an important one. So I don't see that many dropouts, or I don't see different numbers than with Veeva approved emails. They stay fairly low. So that means below 1.5%. When I talk about, because I think that was the second part, when I talk about performance, I don't see a difference between the benchmarks that we see in open rates and click-through rates of Veeva approved emails versus Salesforce Marketing Cloud, especially when they are preceded by a rep visit. So when you have rep visit that already talks about a certain topic and then sends an email related to this topic fairly closely after that visit, we really get good open rates, both with Veeva approved email and both with SFMC. But you just take away that burden of the rep, and you take away certain steps from adoption that a rep needs to take. So from that perspective, I do see that SFMC will lower your numbers of Veeva approved email. Where I do see a different rate in performance is, let's just assume that you would send out an SFMC batch of emails to 10 physicians that you were not able to visit because of time constraints, but you do think those emails are relevant to them. When those emails are being sent out, and it also to Dr. Alfonso, it will still come from Rep Phillip. If it's not preceded from me introducing that topic to Dr. Alfonso, we do see that those emails get less opened and less conversions. And that's between, I would say, 40 to 50% of an email being preceded by a rep. That doesn't mean that it's not interesting, but because it's still increasing your reach with physicians where you were not able to see them, but you do have consent. So from a tactical point of view on reach, it's still interesting, but it's less performing. That's something you need to know. So this is where I see the main difference, and everything else goes quality of subject line, quality of content, etc. If you have bad content to a Veeva approved email or bad content to SFMC, it will have the same impact. That's number one, content and HCP relevance.
Yeah. Thanks, Philip. Okay, we've got a couple more questions here that have come in. Here's an interesting one. How important is using data for decision making when driving omni-channel campaigns?
I can go with that. For me, it's essential. So it's one of the things that we are now piloting and implementing is Data Cloud, that is to manage the data. So having unified profiles is a key for Salesforce Marketing Cloud, because of you can start doing a lot of personalization. This means that you are growing in the metrics and the ratios of opens and clicks, etc. I think this is the where this is where we need to go. No, is to managing the data to obtain better personalization, a better experience of the user. No, this is key. So I don't understand omnichannel in other ways. So we need to try to avoid to start doing some mass emails and using Salesforce Marketing Cloud in this way. So we need to take care of the data, unify profiles, and have a strong decisions of the strategy based on the data.
Yeah.
So I just want to add a few things on this one, also from a different angle. For me, a minimal viable campaign is basically one message to all HCPs. So you simplify, right? So basically, it's an automated multi-channel. So it's you're taking steps towards omni-channel, but you're just taking them slowly. So that's one. So the data in the MVC that you need to capture is how many of the reps that I invited to join the campaign are actually embracing this campaign. It's adoption. If you don't get adoption, you will never get performance in your campaign. Your first metric and KPI you need to keep out is, are really reps working with this campaign? And do we see reps performing high with this campaign? Or do we see reps that have 50 visits but have no active, have basically not onboarded HCPs in these campaigns? And that's where you need to work, and that's where you need to know that you need to do something different from conversations, communication. So that's a very key important KPI. And then of course you have your performance KPIs, open rates, click-through rates, etc., on a channel level. The third level you need to watch out for is performance of message. I mean, we are not in the business of sending emails. From a pharma company, you have the ambition, certainly from medical, to have people, to educate them to become better at their practice so that they can help patients, or to be more understanding of product features, what the product can do, what it can bring to patients. So you need to see, how do HCPs get exposed to a message rather than have 3 emails with this and this and this opening rate. If that was a transactional email, thank you for your visit, thank you for downloading, that has 0 value for the message. It's a very different game. So it's about adoption, performance in channel, and performance in message. Then there's a few other metrics which are interesting, but for an MVC, those 3 are important. And then the last topic I want to talk about analytics is, again, when you work with a team of people who have a higher expertise in understanding KPIs, it's one thing. Where I do see people struggle, both in local teams and in HQ teams, is reading data and capturing what is important and what does this mean for my next campaign. What does this mean where I'm below or above benchmark? Does it mean, I sometimes have people that just throw out, okay, let's stop doing automated emails. So you see people sometimes seeing a dashboard, and putting a dashboard together is one, but it's about the analysis and the coaching you need to give to people to be able to read and to understand these KPIs. That's where you need to emphasize.
Yeah, thanks, Philip. That's an interesting point as well. Not just looking at the HCPs, but also on the rep side as well, learning from that data. And as Alfonso mentioned, Data Cloud opens up a world of possibilities, building calculated insights and things that can give us insight into affinities and behaviors. That's great. Speaking of behaviors, we've got a question here as well that's come in. It says, do you see any specific particularities both on the sales team or HCPs, for example, behaviors, that impact on omni-channel journeys for this market compared to others? So I can read it again if you like.
Well, that's a good one. When you look at different countries, I think that's the question. The behavior could be different, and also the strategies. So, for example, I look at Spain or Italy, for example, to have some examples. No, here we set up a lot of hybrid campaigns. So we manage face-to-face with a mix of digital channels at the same times, and works very well. No, if you look to other countries, for example, in Latin America or some specific countries that they don't have enough resources for example, and then they have more non-visited HCPs, then we try to do more digital activities, you know, more based on the website, more based on webinars or events, no? But it's completely different, no? But the thing about the behavior, this is the key point, no? Is that we, in some cases, when we start, we also take profit of the first campaigns, starting to obtain this behavior. So this is something very interesting, no? Is that you start collecting some key information to understand better what are the needs, what is the behavior of this HCP, and then you need to improve the next campaigns with this data. That's because Philip is right about you need to be trained to understand the performance of the results of the campaigns, of the journeys, in order to improve with the data the next campaigns. So that's I think is a key point.
I think it's a really good conversation, a really good topic. It kind of links also to what Alfonso said earlier. You need to start building that first party data strategy. You need to, once you start working with automated campaigns, your number and volume of data will grow because you increase touch points. And this means that you also really need to be very good at your customer identity management, how you build your strategy, where do you collect your data, do you work with a CDP, how do you build your dashboards. That's really important for everything which is linked to plumbing, everything which is linked in the back. So definitely have a conversation with a good amount of people, a very good cross-functional team on how do we want to establish our first party data strategy. When I look around behaviors, I think some of the countries that you mentioned, you know, Australia, some of the Latin America countries, because of their geography, Canada, for example, because of their geography, they need to shift to different channels. Europe's is a different game, of course. We have some markets which have very good access, often access to physicians. And this is where I position campaign automation as in the first, I would say, year, as an additional element to extend, to enrich beyond the HCP visit. If you have good access, like markets like Italy, Spain, sometimes you can sit with physicians for 30, 40 minutes. Email or landing pages or video on demand can be something additional. So I have the conversations with the reps to say, you have great access, that's good. But how if we extend that experience? And it's not about taking you away, it's about building an experience around your visit before, during, and after. So that before, during, and after concept is very easy to have that conversation with reps and to say, what if I would build something which extends your visit and will make you more knowledgeable the next time? It becomes different when you move to European markets with where consent levels are different. Germany, UK, where GDPR is a bit difficult with double opt-in, or when you go in towards where it's also a hospital market rather than a private practice market, depending on specialty care. This is where you need to build in a different strategy. And this is where your rationale and your conversation will shift as well. So one step that I sometimes do with customers is do a profiling on market level. What type of market do we have? Do we have relationship markets? Do we have remote markets? Do we have markets with where reach and access is under pressure? Do we have low consent markets? Because it doesn't make sense if you only have 40, 50% to only rely on email marketing as an automation piece. You need to build in different use cases. You need to start working with third-party collaborations. But this is more about your go-to-market strategy in the landscape and in the markets that you're addressing. So that's a topic which needs to happen before that. You shouldn't be doing this as part of your MVC. Make sure you have something that is live and then start questioning how do we position this differently? How can we improve? Where does it bring value? And it will not be the same in every European country or Latin American country for sure.
Yeah, great. Excellent points. Thank you. So maybe just one final question here that's come in. It'll definitely be something familiar to you. The question is the MLR review one of the main bottlenecks for having a minimum viable campaign?
Alfonso, you take this one. I can also discuss.
Yeah, well, this is different, the approach that we take, no? So in some cases, we try to reuse or use in the first campaigns what we have approved already. And
But the
in
question
some
is
cases,
that also, Messina, Alfonso, if you need to approve a Veeva approved email, or you need to approve that same email sent as an SFMC automated email, would this impact MLR in some way? It wouldn't, right? It's
yeah,
so.
no,
If you do 2 Veeva approved emails or 2 SFMC emails, MLR is still MLR.
it's the same.
So what I did have and I don't know if I did have issues in the past with clients understanding if how automation works as a tool. So for example, will emails go to the physician without the rep knowing? And because this is where you sometimes have an issue, because the issue with Veeva approved email is the rep decides this email goes out, while in the other case it's a programmation. The rep sees it happening, but so the level of impact and control the rep has on this topic, this email going, I think it's more on the, not a technicality, but the way of operating. That's been in my examples more of a conversation than the actual MLR review.
Yeah, it's true. Because it depends on the strategy that you finally choose in these journeys, no? Because you can automatize, but depends, no? You can start with an approved email, is sent, but you can do the remarketing with Salesforce Marketing Cloud, and then you have a super good ratio of open because it's an approved email, but the rep cannot track that if it has been open or not. But Salesforce Marketing Cloud can do it. And then we can increase ratios.
What you will see with, if you go further in maturity, right? I mean, when I now do campaigns with more mature customers, because of automation, you can increase frequency and length. So where I do see that automation opens a range of possibilities, which before that were unknown. So because you can pre-program everything, you can say, I'm doing a rep visit with 2 emails, I'm increasing from 2 to 3. After the second visit with people who did not open, I'm doing something differently. You can start doing A/B testing with content. So when you progress in year 1 and year 2, the volume of content will grow because it will be a lot more easy to have personalized journeys, do A/B testing, and use on a tactical level more content. So over years, I see the volume of content growing, and that's where you need to check in with your content strategy. Do you go modular or not? But also with modular, it's still the 2-3 week MLR process review. So I think MLR process, but also the ability for marketing to produce more content and a more elaborate content library will be the big challenge. Once you start to crack the code on execution, this is where the weight of the organization, the weight of the challenges will go towards marketing and review process.
Yeah, very good. Well, thanks for all of these great points. We appreciate the questions as well. It helped to stimulate the discussion even more. We're obviously glad to share the knowledge. So there were a couple of questions that we weren't able to answer. We need to wrap it up here. But if you have more questions, you can reach out to Shower Thinking or to Phillip at Shift, and you have that opportunity. But it's been great being involved in this webinar, and so we want to thank everyone for attending, and we hope everybody has an excellent holiday break.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Philip, to come and join us. Ciao.
Bye-bye.